Hello everyone. In the previous video, we have discussed an outline about immunology, immune responses, and what is immunity and all. And here in this presentation, we will see what are the different types of immunity or what are the different types of immune responses. So, in the last presentation also, we have seen that immunity broadly has been divided into two categories: innate immunity and adaptive immunity. This adaptive immunity is otherwise also called as acquired immunity. So, innate immunity is nothing but the immunity which is obtained by the body, and the specificity is provided by the genetic system. Right? It's a property of this individual, of the host body, which is obtained by virtue of the genetic status of the individual. At the same time, acquired immunity is something which is acquired, or the adaptive immunity which is acquired to adapt into the situation. Right? So these are usually acquired during the lifetime of that individual as a result of an exposure, as a result of an experience. All right, and these are the different levels of innate immunity, like individual, racial, and species levels of innate immunity you can see. And in the acquired one, you can have subdivisions like active immunity and passive immunity, and under both of which you have natural and artificial system of resistance. Right. So in this part, we will see all these things in a brief way. So before that, let's have a clear distinction between innate and adaptive immunity. So in terms of the response time taken by the body or by the immune system, innate immunity, it's comparatively faster response, takes minutes to hours compared to several days for adaptive immunity. And for specificity, innate immunity is less specific compared to adaptive immunity. And the major cell types already we have seen before. There are different cells like macrophage, neutrophils, NK cells, dendritic cells, etc. And in adaptive immunity, basically T cells and B cells are involved. And the major components are various proteins and also certain toxic substances. At the same time, in the adaptive immunity, antibodies plays the crucial role. And in the specificity factor, that means in the self versus non-self discrimination, innate immunity usually it must be perfect. It has to be perfect, otherwise, because this is a genetic status of the body. At the same time, adaptive immunity which is acquired, and there is a possibility for having some pitfalls, having some loopholes in the specificity or in the self non-self discrimination. So in terms of this self and non-self discrimination, adaptive immunity is not that good. And the memory, in terms of memory, adaptive immunity is very good in keeping memory. Innate immunity do not usually have, or they do not maintain the history of the infections. And that in terms of diversity also, adaptive immunity is much diverse compared to the innate response, which is already a fixed response. At the same time, adaptive immunity is having much possibility for customization based on the antigen coming, or based on the nature of the antigen. The immune system will modify itself and will produce a specific molecule specifically acting on a particular antigen. So there is a more customized possibility, and there is much diversity also seen in the adaptive immunity. So innate immunity, you can see the specificities and factors already we have seen. And this innate immunity, one of the most important thing we have to remember, that these are not affected by prior contact with microorganisms or immunization. Right, that is the basic distinction between adaptive and innate. And adaptive immunity is attained by the body through either by an exposure, whether it be natural or artificial, or usually by an infection, or it could also be it will be either by contact with the microorganism or with immunization. That means either natural or artificial means of infection, right? So innate immunity, usually in population, the innate immunity is exerted or is experienced at three levels, and these are defined as species immunity, racial immunity, and individual immunity. The species immunity is nothing but the immunity or the resistance shown by all the members of a particular species. You can have a lot of examples, right? Like, anthracis is seen in humans. There is a possibility for anthrax infection in human beings, but never chickens. Okay, chickens are usually resistant to anthrax. It's usually because of the body temperature, the difference in body temperature, so that the bacillus anthracis usually will not survive in chickens, or they will not induce an infection. There are a lot of other examples also for species level of immunity. Then racial immunity also, even within a species, different races show difference in their susceptibility to their different infections, right? That means even within the Homo sapien, that means within the species of human being, the susceptibility for the Plasmodium falciparum, that means the causative agent of malaria, is different. That means in Negro people or in the people living in African countries are more resistant to malaria than in Asian people. So in that way, racial immunity is being explained. Then within a species or even within a race, even though all other things are the same, are common, even individuals will be different in terms of their resistance capacity. So this is what we call individual immunity. This is the infection or resistance to infection which varies with different individuals of the same race or species, which is called individual immunity, right? That we can experience easily around us. We are different from our friend, we are different from our parent, we are different from our cousin in terms of the ability to resist a particular pathogen. So these are the different levels. These are the three levels: species level, racial level, and individual level of innate immunity that's being experienced in a population. And there are different factors which influence the development of innate immunity. And the three most important factors are shown here. One is age, second one is hormonal changes or hormonal influence is there, and third one is the nutritional status of the host body. Age is of course an important factor, right? Age is very important because in the both extremes, that means in the very early period and very late period of the age, the individuals are more susceptible for various infections, right? Because in the initial ages or in the growing stage, the immune system is also in the immature status or in the growing stage. And at the same time, in the old ages, there will be a waning of the capacity of the immune system, so that there will be some defects, some possible loopholes in the immune system, so that easily the pathogens can attack, right? Then hormonal influence also, the change of the body's hormonal status will affect the resistance capacity. Various examples like when you have diabetes, the resistance system will not be as in case of a normal healthy individual. And also you can take another example in case of a pregnant woman. It is entirely different from a normal woman in terms of their hormonal status. So various examples you can find for hormonal changes also. And nutrition, of course, that's also a very obvious factor that affect the innate immunity or the capacity of the body to resist. Because whether everything is fine, without proper nutrients, the immune system cannot respond properly. So malnutrition is one of the major predisposing factor for bacterial infections, right? So we have to be taken care of all these three factors when we discuss about the innate immunity.